thank you. For those of you who are listening to the replay, please make sure to leave your comments below if you have any questions in regards to the topic that we brought forth, any questions in regards to the new work that Cheryl and I will be birthing. Again, please, you could reach us at the Soulful Leader Community Facebook group, or you could email us at saharnafal1@gmail.com. Saharnafal, the number 1@gmail.com. Much love to each and every one of you. Again, thank you so much for listening to the replay, and for those of you who attended live. Sahar Nafal, founder of the Soulful Leader Community. Bye-bye. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sahar Nafal, founder of the Soulful Leader Community. I want to welcome each and every one of you here today that is joining us for this really important topic. Speak up, your voice matters, with my very special guest, Cheryl A. Cates. Not only is she a special guest, but she's a dear friend of 13 years. Right now, it's time for us to have a conversation like no other. It is time for us to share our voices, our opinions, and mostly our truths of what's happening. The unjust, everything that is happening right now, the uprise. I'm Palestinian. I want to call it an uprise for justice. And today, before we begin, I just want to welcome you all for being here. We're going to be, as you are coming on the call, I already have my wonderful friend Cheryl here, but as you're coming on the call, I invite you to, in the comments, to go ahead and just begin writing your first name, and I want you to tell us where you're from. And just because of the topic and nothing more, would love for you to share with us how you identify yourself to be, your ethnicity, your background. Who are you? What country, what culture? Who do you identify your culture to be? Because the truth is, at the Soulful Leader Community, we're all about diversity and coming together from every part of the world. So please share that. And if you don't feel like you're called to do so, you don't have to do it. So again, I welcome each and every one of you. As we are waiting for more and more people to join us, let me welcome and do the welcoming. So this is our 6th Soulful Leader Virtual Global Gathering. It's our 6th one. We started on the 2nd of April, right after the news of the COVID. And I want to tell you, this is a Soulful family, and I want to welcome each and every one of you to this Soulful family. Again, take a minute as you're coming on to go ahead and write your name, the city, and what culture do you identify with most? What is your background? And the reason we're asking that is just specifically for this topic, and I'll tell you later why. So whether you are brand new here to our Soulful Leader Community or longtime Soulful member, I want to welcome you again. And thank you for your presence. It is truly a gift to us. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, thank you for being here. And just know that you belong. The Soulful Leader virtual gatherings were created, again, during these uncertain times to bring together a community of soulful leaders from diverse backgrounds who are creating change in our world. Yes. The Soulful Leader community is where voices are heard, stories are told, and lives transformed. Whether or not these unprecedented times make sense to your logical mind right now, I invite you to surrender to what is at this moment and know right here, this is a safe space of love and connection. I invite you to enjoy the soulful space at this moment for at least the next hour and a half. Just surrender to what is. One of my favorite quotes by Hafiz goes like this: this place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. This place where you are right now, God circled on a map for you. I want you to take that in. So be present with this space right now. You are called to be here for a reason, right? So the ideal of the Soulful family is about how total strangers across from all over the world, from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, faith, beliefs, can join together in this powerful community that we can all foster and belong to. Today, my dear friend and our special guest, Cheryl Cates, will be joining me in a conversation that is well needed. And our topic is Speak Up, Your Voice Matters. But before we begin, a few housekeeping. Just please make sure that you are on mute at all times unless I unmute you. And when I do unmute you, or one of my team members unmute you, please make sure that you're muted back, because we want to make sure there's no noise or interruptions during this time. And if you choose not to be on video, I honor that as well, but we would love to see your face and the energy that you bring forth to this conversation. We will have opportunities for questions towards the end. And if there is a burning question that you really, really need to ask, please make sure to write it in the comments. And for those of you who are just joining us again, please make sure you tell us where you come from, your first name, and where you are calling in from. And again, because of the nature of our call today, I'd love for you to tell us what culture, ethnicity, or background you identify with. This is wonderful. All right, so always start with a meditation, an invocation. We always start with a grounding exercise. You know how important it is for us to ground ourselves. And there couldn't be a more perfect divine individual who I love so dearly, and one of my dearest friends for years and mentor, Jan Jorgensen, to be here with us. She is a voice and healing expert, and she's going to do an invocation with us to ground us today before we begin this very important dialogue. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Jan, hello, and let me go ahead and make sure you're on the spotlight. And here you go, my dear. We're all yours.
Good morning, Sahar.
Good morning, beautiful.
Cheryl and sisters around the world. I am honored at this time because this is the time for our voices to be megaphones for the change and the peace that will eventually come to earth. So let's take a deep breath through our nose and out through our mouth. And let's come to a place of balance and presence. Our voices are the key to unfolding a higher order on this earth. Our work is to bring heaven to earth, these conversations, as above, so below. Take a deep breath through your nose and out through your mouth. As we drop into this space of remembering and being, and in your mind, repeat after me. We are women of light.
We are women of light.
We speak light.
We speak light.
We see light.
We see light.
We the light in each other.
We are the light
in each other.
We speak truth.
We
speak truth.
So here we are. In this conversation, we are changing the story of Earth. We say this prayer. Forgive us, Creator, for silence so long. We are now telling our stories of what went wrong. My voice was silent, my hands went unused. I forgot as above, so below. I now raise my voice in song and word as a balm of healing, pure reattunement to the path of goodness and passion and leadership.
Yes.
A new story through me and our sisters. And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is. Wow. Wow. You are so divine, my sister. I love you so much. Thank you for this beautiful invocation. Thank you. Whew, I need to take another deep breath here. All right. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. More and more of you are joining us. For those of you who have not had an opportunity, please give us your first name, where you come from, and again, what ethnicity do you identify with? And there's a reason due to our topic today. I tell you, this has been a really interesting morning for me. I meditated as always. I do meditate on the topic of expanding love because I really want to be present with you and expand my love to each and every one of you, especially expanding love to our world right now and to our humanity right now and to the universe for all the shift and the uncertainty and the unclarity and everything that's happening right now. Every single morning I committed, ever since the news of COVID, to do a meditation. It's a 14-minute meditation of expanding my love. And this is one of the first things as women in leadership that we need to do, is to send the vibration of high frequency of love to the world. And I'm going to invite each one of you to do the same with me. Today, again, is a topic of bringing and sharing our truths, specifically to who we are as women and what's happening right now in our world, the unjust that's happening right now. I would like to first, as we always do, after our grounding, is to open the lines for those who are called to say hello. And there is a specific question that I'm going to ask. But before I do, I want to just share with you a little bit about who I am and as a leader, and what have I done throughout my life in order for me to arrive to this space right now. And typically I would share with you the story of the bright side of life, from the dark side to the bright side of life, and leaving a marriage that's unhealthy, and all the ups and downs of what I have been through during the past 10, 12 years, and how I started my family room, the Bright Side of Life women's gathering with 6 women. But today I want to change it up a little bit, because there's something that I don't share much about who I am and my background. And this is so relevant to today. And I'm not going to take long, I promise you, but I feel like at this moment, it is very important for you to understand who I am and my background. I know some of you know that I am a Palestinian. Both my parents are Palestinian. And of course, as a Palestinian, I'm not going to go into the politics. We never felt a sense of belonging, because we didn't have a home. We don't have a home to call home, although we do have Palestine, but we don't. So I get it. You know, I've seen my people struggle. I've seen the wars. I've been in one. I've seen all the struggling and the injustice that happens. So this topic to me and what's happening right now is dear to my heart, because I feel it, I know it, I've witnessed it. And I might get emotional, and that's going to be okay, because I need to be in the raw today, fully open. In addition, I grew up looking different. You know, I grew up blonde hair, blue eyes, light complexion, in a world that told me that I shouldn't look that way, because none of the people around me looked like me. And so I was bullied at a very young age because of my complexion, because of who I am. My parents are of our Christian faith, so that was also something that we were always, we were called infidels in a country that primarily was Islam. And of course, it has nothing to do with the religion itself. My best friend is Islamic, and I have nothing to do with that, but it just happened that I grew up in that environment. And I come to America and thinking, wow, there's so many people, there's so much diverse people here, that I finally get to fit in. And as an adult, I ended up fitting in. But the thing is, as soon as I was asked where I was from, I didn't know where I was from. Yes, I am Palestinian, born in Kuwait, raised in Saudi Arabia, and that's the country I came from. And so the first thing on my mind for a 12-year-old was, I am from Saudi Arabia. And so that word Arabia haunted me. So now, how I look like, or my parents' culture, or my parents' faith didn't matter anymore, or how it was now being an Arab. So you could imagine me growing up not feeling a sense of belonging in this universe, that everywhere I go, every school I attended, every adult I met, every teacher I spoke with, the society have always told me that you don't fit in. You don't look the part. You're not from where you're supposed to be. And so that stayed with me. I even married someone who I didn't belong to throughout my life, until I stepped into the essence of who I am as Sahar. And now I belong, because I choose to belong. I choose to belong here. And this is one of the talks that I speak of. So I wanted to share that a little bit with you in my background, why this topic is so dear to my heart. In addition, I've had the opportunities of curiosity in college to always want to fit in a space where people felt they didn't fit in. Every culture, every religion, every person that I've met, no matter what is your diversity, what is your background, I wanted to know you. I wanted to become your friend. I wanted to understand you. I wanted to learn about how you grew up, what you eat, how your family is, what are your dynamics. Because of the story of not belonging, I wanted to make sure to embrace everyone for who they are. I wanted to love on everyone for who they are. So I found myself in these incredible places and spaces and opportunities and stages that nobody would ever dream of. I have met presidents. I have met world leaders. I have met thought leaders. I've been on stages with incredible people that I would never fathom have been because of my curiosity of wanting to learn more. And this is really what I want to share with you today, what Cheryl and I will be talking about. Be curious about others. Be curious about who they are and what you want to know about them. Expand your community. Get to know people for who they are so that love and dismantle the judgment that we have been conditioned to believe about humanity. I did a course one day with this amazing man by the name of Tim Kelly. He's the author of True Purpose. And my essence was translating judgment into love. And this is what I want to carry with me. Translating judgment into love. And this is what it's all about today, ladies. It's about us sharing our truth. It's about us voicing what we have in our hearts. It's about us expanding our curiosity, expanding our wealth of people, of diversity. It's about us talking about justice and much, much more. This is what this is all about today. And I want each and every one of you to have the courage to speak your truth today. This is a safe space. Speak your truth. So with that being said, I really want to open, and thank you for listening. I want to open the lines for those of you, and there's a question that I want to put forth. And if you are called to answer this question, please raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to unmute you. And it's going to be 1 minute because we do want to honor each and every one of us who has something to say. Before Cheryl and I dive into the topic, it is important for us to hear from you first. It is important for us. So the question is this: what are you speaking up about that matters right now? What are you speaking up about that matters right now? And perhaps towards the end, we might have an opportunity for some of you who had not shared, if we find the time for you to share that. But I want you to think about it. What are you speaking up about right now that matters? That when somebody hears it, knows that there's change that needs to be made. And there's another question. If that question is, if you are someone who's creating a shift of consciousness in humanity, what are you doing to shift the consciousness of humanity right now? So those are the two questions for you. I'm going to go ahead and get back here. And let's see here. Anybody raise their hand? I saw a few of you. All right. Carol, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. All right, sweetheart, stage is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
I'm speaking up for women who need to claim their power in their relationships. Women who are powerless, and that usually means that they are in emotionally abusive relationships. And in this lockdown time, it's really horrible for women who have no power. So those are the women I'm speaking up for.
Thank you so much, Carol. You're awesome. And congratulations for speaking. I can't speak up now. All right, next. All right, Patricia, go ahead, sweetheart. I'm unmute you.
I am a women's empowerment expert and wealth advisor. That's my business. However, what I'm speaking up now about is the trauma that me as a Black person and other people in my race are experiencing right now. I've never really felt that I could talk about it to my white counterparts because they never seem to be interested. However, I've hit a pinnacle in my life when I actually saw a real live murder. That was it. That was the main trauma that just set me over to a world of, this is too much. I thought I was handling it well, but I'm not. I'm not handling this
And
trauma.
what are you doing? How are you speaking? How are you speaking out? I want to hear, what are you doing about it?
I'm speaking out right now, and I'm talking to my white counterparts that asked me, what can I do? I wasn't aware. I'm not going to force my opinions on them because I don't know if they want to know, but I'm speaking out, the ones that want to hear from me.
Beautiful. I want to honor you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I really, really want to honor you. Patricia, and I've known you for so long, and I'm so proud that you're speaking out. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Anybody else who has something that want to say right now, go ahead and raise your hand. We have a couple of pages. Okay, let's go ahead. And this is pertaining to what's happening right now, and what are you doing for your voice to matter during this time? Go ahead, Deborah.
Hi, thank you, Sahar. I am a parenting coach, and it seems like every time there's a tragedy, parenting comes to be part of the solution and maybe part of the problem. And sorry if I get emotional, but it's always been my passion to help parents bring up really respectful children who are responsible and make good decisions. And so I became a parenting coach in order to start from the foundation. And hopefully, you know, you have harming the home, it spreads to the community and onward. So I've been aligning with a lot more people since COVID. It has given me that opportunity to not only teach people how they can talk to their children, but I'm also learning. I'm always learning and talking to, as Patricia said, my Black friends and associates, and going on whatever webinars that I see where I can learn as well, even more, so that I can teach that.
Thank you very much for sharing. I so appreciate you, and you know, also taking action and wanting to have more curiosity and learn more. Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right. Anybody else? Okay. Ibtisam, go ahead and unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. Can you see that?
Unmute.
All right. Perfect. For those of you who are listening, I might be able to unmute you as well, but I'd like to see you. All right, go ahead, sweetheart.
I'm speaking of our humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and the conversation as far as going, like I'm checking with my children to make sure that they are where they should be with our humanity. My son is a Chicago police officer, and I had a really serious conversation with him because I'm worried about him being in that situation where he is standing watching somebody doing something wrong and maybe like he would be frozen to do anything. So I wanted to see that, to make sure that he would intervene at any cost to stop anything wrong from happening, you know, like what happened with George Floyd, which was like really hit us to the core with our humanity. I would like to see somebody put an inventory of all the racist marks. Like sometimes we say things that it is repetitive, even politicians use it, or even research.
How about you? Let's yeah. What is it that you're voicing?
I would like, you know, even with the Black community, at one point I would like to see that the word colored, because we are all colored, like there is no such thing as colored people. We are only people. You know, I would like that word to disappear at one point. You know, I was thinking about it this morning. Why should we be described as colored people? You know, all of us, like I consider myself colored too, but maybe colorful, but I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, like at one point.
Thank you so much for sharing, sweetheart. I appreciate you. I want to honor. and make sure that everybody has a voice as well. Anybody else that wants to raise? That's a very good point, by the way. Thank you. All right, my friend. All right, Jill, thank you for being here. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted I'm here. You know, mine started in Poland, and I was in the middle of this.
You're frozen, sweetheart.
Incredible anti-Semites.
Okay.
Oh, can you?
All right.
Yes.
So my question to
No?
you, what are you doing right now? What are you voicing right
Hang
now?
on.
What are you speaking up on? Just get to the, we want to get to the point because we want to
Can you
have
hear
as
me
many
now?
people share. Yeah, I can hear you much better now. Go for it.
So can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So what I'm speaking up, yes, thank you. What I'm speaking up about are the places where I've never spoken up. That includes in my relationship when my partner, he says something that's upsetting to me, or that includes, you know, writing, helping my clients in PR with messages that are relevant for right now. So that's powerful. And I think for me, it's really like, there's no more not speaking up. When somebody says something, whether it be anti-something, right? And so I think that's the power, is speaking up now for what's important. I have in PR to speak their voice in a way that can be heard and be counted.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, dear friend. Thank you, Jill, for being here. All right. And we have from Carol Benson. All right, Carol, my friend, I love it. How are you, sweetheart? Welcome. Thank you for being here in this conversation.
Thank you for inviting all of us, Sahar. I'm speaking up now about how to rewire uncertainty. Every conversation I have, I'm still hearing people being stuck in that fear, and they're not inviting in a new perception. And my area is to really transform their perceptions into joy, no matter what. Yes. So you're shifting uncertainty. And I want to show people how I'm speaking up about how do you add to your, I call it the neural bank account of new experiences and new perceptions. So I'm speaking out about that.
Thank you so much.
Not that you didn't anymore.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate your, thank you. All right, anybody else? I want to hear from people more. I want to hear more. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Judy, you're next, sweetheart. What are you speaking about that matters right now?
Speaking about peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we choose every day. What do we want to manifest?
Mm-hmm.
Peace or chaos? And I just keep it that simple. Like, what is it that you're doing that's serves the highest good? And what do you do that serves peace?
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? I saw some hands. Come on, sister. Come on. I see you moving. Come on. I want to unmute you. You have a voice. We want to hear it.
Great morning, everyone. You gonna make me talk today?
Well, of course I'm gonna make you talk. This is a dear friend.
So,
Hi.
I have been just speaking up about understanding that a lot of what we believe and have trusted for so long may not be 100% correct. It might just be a perspective or an awareness that was inherited. And that we want to begin to look for the things that are that common thread that allows us to understand what are the basic things we all need. How do we expand upon that next level of communication and maintaining those basic needs? And what does that look like? And reminding people that if you have to, when you get to a point of having a conversation, when you get uncomfortable, ask yourself, why do you get uncomfortable? And let's just speak up and speak out about our experiences and know that I don't have to necessarily understand your experience, but I do need to understand that it's just as valid as my experience. And additionally, I also invite people to remember that just because you have to up-level, reshift, repurpose your belief or your pattern of behavior or your way of associating or perceptions of others around you has to shift in order to up level to the next level of higher consciousness, it doesn't mean that the person that taught you that is now invalid in your life. It just means that you are evolving, growing, and expanding the way we're supposed to.
Oh,
That's
that
it.
is so beautifully said. Thank you so much, sweetheart. That's so beautifully
To
said.
all of you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else before we move forward? We're good? Okay. Auntie. Artie, sorry, hi. You have 1 minute, Artie. I already unmuted you. Here you go. One more time.
Can you
All right.
hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
go for it.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Sahar, for inviting. And today I wanted to actually feel vulnerable because that's what I am actually talking
You
about.
can, 1 minute, go for it.
Yes. So I know. So staying vulnerable and talking our own truth, no matter how scary it is one thing that I want to spread the message of, so that we can actually have conversations, and also, speaking our truth will make others comfortable, that if I could be vulnerable, so can you, and you could
Oh,
speak the truth. Thank
that
you.
is so beautiful. Love it. What a perfect note to end with. All right, so we're ready to dive right in. Thank you, each and every one of you, for participating. Thank you for sharing your truth. Thank you for making a difference, whether it is on your children, for whether on other people's children, whether you're speaking up in your community. Everything that I heard today was just perfect. And whether you're speaking on peace, and whether you're teaching your clients how their message works. I mean, each and every one of you is doing just doing something, even if it's little, if it's independent, individually, you're doing something. So I just want to honor you, each and every one of you. So we're ready to dive right in. And of course, we have our wonderful Cheryl. Kate's here with us today, my dear friend. I want to tell you that the truth is, for those of us who chose to be here during these times, obviously, we're here to help rise the collective consciousness, and we are going to participate in any way we can. And a lot is going to be expected from us. And it sounds like many of you are doing the right thing right now. And that's why it's relevant at this time for your voice to be shared, and that your voice to be heard in the world. Whether you are vulnerable, whether you are fearful, whatever it is, your voice is very important for it to be shared. And your purpose right now is to really serve, elevate humanity with your voice. Literally, with your message is to elevate humanity. And with that being said, speaking of voice, my dear friend Cheryl Cates. I want to tell you a story of how I met her. I was in Los Angeles in 2007. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she spoke, and she called herself the Voice, and I still call her the Voice. She spoke at an event that I was invited to. And I kid you not, I was so mesmerized. I stayed all the way to the end. Of course, when she finished her talk, it was so powerful. People were lining up to speak to her. And I said, I'm going to sit in my seat in this big auditorium, and I'm not going to leave until as she's leaving to capture her attention, because I don't know who she is, but I want to be her friend. I want to get to know her more. And with that, what happened is it literally happened. So I stayed in my seat. I was the only one, and she's leaving. And I would think I was having conversation about Jordan and Queen Noor, right? And she listened. She goes, this is interesting. She came to me, and we began our conversation. And that was really the beginning of a friendship of 13 years.
Yes.
13 years of we're not talking about affiliate or no. We're talking about deep friendships of 13 years, where we visited each other, where we laughed together, where we went through times of ups and downs together, divorces together, where we went through, dealing with our children together, where we went through celebrating New Year's Eve together. We went to parties together. We went to folkloric dance. We just recently went to a show together. We're talking about conversations, hours and hours and hours of conversation. But I want to share a story that's really close to me before the most impactful time of my life, and how Cheryl was there. So is it okay if I put you on the spotlight? This is more important to me than anything for me to share who you are as a friend. October of last year, she came over and to Chicago. I was still living there, and Cheryl at that time, well, she still is in Ohio, and she visited me, and she walked in with this globe, and I want to show you. This is so important to me. This beautiful globe, and there's a light on the bottom, so you literally light it up, right? And I said, Cheryl, one thing you need to know about Cheryl, she loves gift giving, so she always brings me something, right? And so she brought me this globe. I go, wow, this is so beautiful. It's glass, it's gorgeous. And she said, the light that's inside is of us going and traveling the world and sharing our voices and our light with the world. You see, Cheryl and I have been talking about doing something together and being on stage together for 10 years. And this globe had represented exactly what our vision, our mission, what we wanted to do. And she said, Sahar, there will be a time. There will be a time, and I believe right now is the time. There will be a time. But quickly, that this globe didn't only represent her and I and our light that we need to spread in the world, but this globe also represented something even more profound. And that is that evening, the phone rang, and I picked it up while Cheryl and I were sitting and visiting and talking. And it was the call that I was told my father passed. And there could be a more perfect divine person to be with me at that time. And that was you, Cheryl. She prayed with me. She held space with me. We stayed up really late as I shared stories about my father and I and the time that we spent together.
Yeah.
And so that meant to me more than anything. She's not just a friend or a sister. She's literally one of my soulmates. And it's not, soulmates is not just for romantic. It's soulmates is when you meet these people on earth that makes an impact in your life. And Cheryl is one of them. And so that globe now represented not only of us going, but my father. He loved the world. He was a travel agent. He loved to travel. He loved to learn and he loved to explore. And I think that part of me of loving to explore and having that curiosity comes from that space. And so that globe that I put on my mantle every single day and I light it up has two beautiful meanings. And so I just want to thank you, my dear sister, for showing up in my life and being who you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I love you.
I love you too.
Yes. I want to do a professional bio because you need to know who this powerhouse of a voice is. So recently, Cheryl has been invited to speak at the Black Lives Matter event in Ohio. She participated in community discussions on race and equity, provides leadership on diversity, equity, and strengthening planning into initiatives, as well as consult with corporate executives or transforming their organization's culture. Although her work spent is full range of leadership topics, Cheryl has a passion for bringing the concept and practices of diversity, equity, and inclusion to life for leaders and organizers across the country. She is a mom of an amazing young man, and her time, in her spare time, Cheryl enjoys spending quality time with her parents, her family, and of course, close friends. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome my dear friend, Cheryl Kate. The stage is yours. And here we go.
Oh my, thank you, Sahar. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to be part of today's virtual gathering, and just to all the amazing and brilliant leaders that have dialed in today. I am moved and humbled by the wisdom that is in this virtual room and all the tremendous things that you all are doing to promote change, positive change in the earth. So thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share my voice. I do want to say that when Sahar and I met, I don't know that either one of us could have anticipated that we would spend the next decade plus coming to know one another and the very fabric of our souls, sharing the very fabric of our souls with one another to really create a bond that will never be broken. And she does not exaggerate that even when we are miles apart, we feel each other in the spirit, and we know when we need to check on each other. And she knows when she needs to speak life to me. And those are the things that I love about her. I love about her humanity. Number one, that she has such a tremendous heart for humanity. She creates a sense of safety for everyone who crosses her path. I've been inspired by her courage to speak truth, to speak absolute truth, to speak inconvenient truth, and more than anything, to speak her truth into the universe. She has an unwavering belief in the power of her voice to promote positive change. And that inspires the rest of us to be as bold and as courageous. And so just when I hit those moments when I didn't think, over the years, when I didn't think I can go any further or do any more or pour out anymore, Sahar would either model bravery and do things that I didn't think were possible, and in turn transfer to me the kind of courage that I've needed to speak to the issues of the day and do so boldly and unapologetically. So I thank you for the force of change and inspiration you've been in my life. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for the testimony.
Thank you.
Woo, I need to take that in. Thank you. And ladies, I want to share something with you. I want what my intention is for us here today. It's not just about us talking about what we need to speak up with, but I want Cheryl and I relationship to be an example. To be an example for each and every one of you here, and for each and every one of you who's listening to the replay. It's an unconditional friendship. And I want you to think of amazing people out there that you have that unconditional love and relationship with, because that's what we need right now. People to cheer us on and people to cheerlead us. People to say, yes, you go, sister, and you speak your truth.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and begin, Cheryl. One of the questions that I want to ask you is, right now, what do you feel our individual responsibility as humans? How can we be more mindful of what are the current situations, and whatever is your heart is called to share with us right now? But primarily, how can we be individual responsible as humans right now with all that's going on?
Thank you for that. No, that's a great question. And I think it's a question that applies to all of us, regardless of where we find ourselves situated on this continuum, on the continuum of the issues, and regardless of what our belief systems are. I think one of the most important things that we can do right now as individuals in making a positive contribution to what's happening is to pull back from our opinions and judgments about what we think should or shouldn't be happening, where we think people should or shouldn't be, to pull back from that space of judgment and to do some internal reflection, to really drill down to see what it is that we believe and why do we believe that. It's not enough for us to have our opinions or our thoughts about things, but not know what they're rooted in, because and someone mentioned this earlier, and I think you probably reiterated that all of us have room to grow. All of us have expanded capacity that could be cultivated in terms of understanding other perspectives, other mindsets, right? Understanding the lived experiences of other human beings, but we'll never be curious about those, and we'll never be genuinely interested in those until we pull back from our judgment. So I think the first thing is to pull back from our judgment and our opinions, and to be self-reflective and really identify where we are. One of the things one of the techniques for doing that is when you hear a headline or when you hear a story, when you hear a narrative or a comment, right? Or you pay attention to your own thoughts. But when you hear something outside of yourself, check how you respond. And don't judge your response, but just the moment you respond, pull back from it and say, no, where did that come from? Good, bad, or ugly? Because that's the first step in being honest with ourselves. And why is it necessary to be honest with ourselves? Because in this time, we do need to know, people do need to know that we are being authentic. No one's looking for anyone to be perfect, but we are looking, and when I say we, I mean collective humanity. I think collective humanity wants to get clarity about where someone is, and no matter what that is, let me know where you are, as opposed to you saying one thing, but me feeling something else where there's incongruence. And this gets back, Sahar, to the message that you always share, which is about authenticity. There's a quote by Dr. King, and you'll forgive me if I don't get it exactly right, but the essence of it is this, that to be misunderstood or partially understood by individuals of goodwill is more painful and egregious than to know where you stand exactly with those who have ill will. So for people who are well-meaning, for people who want to do good in the earth, for people who want to make a positive difference, if you've not engaged in the process of learning what the issues are and seeing all sides or expanding your view, then we can do unintended harm to those who truly need to be and feel understood, to be seen, to be heard, and to be accepted and feel like they belong. I hope that answers your question. Those are the things that have been on my heart.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And here's what I heard you say, or I want to add a little bit to that. Sometimes we fear that we might ask the wrong question for people. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I know with you, I've always been curious about the African American community, and you were my go-to. I always come and say, I know this is what I'm about to tell you might be fearful because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you were always giving me the perfect answer, and you never judge me. And I want to invite people to do the same. Whoever you are right now, especially right now, be curious, and we want to learn more. If there's a question that you might think you might offend, I think it is best for you to ask it. Don't you agree? Rather than keep it in and do it wrong. So I would go and ask questions to Cheryl, and she lovingly answered for me. And I became more educated. When I went to Illinois. I really made the intention of having more African-American friends because there's so many amazing women there that I was involved in. And so I felt comfortable because I knew I wasn't walking in not knowing how to, and being very mindful in how I speak and how do I dialogue, or being very sensitive because of what Cheryl has shared with me. And to be totally authentic, if there's something that came up for me to ask why and how and what. And so what you just said was so important. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that answer. And so another question I have for you right now is about social justice issues at this moment. Sure. You know, what do you feel that needs to get resolved among humanity? And I literally right now, what do you think needs to be resolved? What do you think is the most important thing for it to be resolved right now, Cheryl?
So at the risk of oversimplifying, but I do think it's the heart of the matter. And then, of course, we have to get into how these things play out. I do think that the overarching issue is for humans to see other humans as human.
Yes.
That for me is the bottom line, because regardless of background, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of degrees or pedigrees, regardless of any of that, if you can see me as a human and recognize that my desires, my hopes, and my dreams are as valid as yours, then these policies and practices that dismiss, minimize, and dehumanize other people would begin to dissipate. Because you couldn't, if you see living, breathing human beings as human and as valid as yourself, then you can't sit in a seat of power and create legislation that harms. You would be too conscious and too interested and concerned about the impact of your behaviors and decisions on other people. So for me, that's the fundamental issue. Now, how does that play out? How do we see that playing out? And what are the concrete examples or issues of social justice that we have to address? They are really in every sphere of society, because there are inequities, grave inequities in education, in the halls of justice, in law enforcement, in housing, in healthcare, what else? Financial systems, just in every strata and sphere of society, in every institutional system by which our civilization runs, there are gross and grave inequities that affect people, and in particular, people of color and people from low-income backgrounds. But the spotlight right now in this season is on Black people.
Yes.
I could go on, but in the interest of time, I'm going to stop there.
Well, I want you to share what's in your heart, Cheryl.
Okay.
I want you to share. I want you to be raw, and we invite you to share your truth.
Okay. Let me say this. I have oh, here we go. Here it's coming up for me. So I was raised in a family where on my mom's side of the family, God-fearing people. That's where I was introduced to God. That's where I was introduced to my Lord and Savior. Like, we're people of faith, a particular tradition of faith, and it's all good, right? That's where I was taught. From my mom's side of the family, was taught to love. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she was the manifestation of love in human flesh, outside of our biblical and our the roots of our faith. And so that's what I knew, that no matter whose path I crossed or who crossed my path, that love was the priority of the day. My father's side of the family, we were taught to believe in the majesty of our humanity. We were taught that we are just as valuable as anybody else. We were taught that we were brilliant. We were taught to pursue education. We were taught to manifest and pursue our dreams. And we were taught to fight against injustice. I have a history of, I come from a lineage of family members who were very active in the civil rights era. And in my youth growing up, fighting against discrimination in education, on the police department, in the fire department, et cetera, in our local government. So I come from all of that energy. So I'm passionate about human potential, and I'm passionate about people being seen as humans and them feeling loved and cherished and valued, and them being supported to become all that their creator intended for them to be. So I grew up in this little family unit. I'm the oldest of 3 children. My father was a serial entrepreneur. My mother, a stay-at-home mom until we were a bit older, before she went out of the house to work, supported my dad in his business. But I grew up thinking, I come from this amazing Black family. I come from this incredible heritage and lineage of Black people, preachers on my mama's side and business people and entrepreneurs and advocates on my father's side, right? Long story short, right? We believe just do what's in your heart to do, make it happen, right? And then I have to say this. So my mom is really, really light, really light. The joke in our family was she had white people's hair. And I was always like, yay, because I got some, I like my hair. And so, those DNA kits, about 4 years ago, my mom, because she's always overseen the genealogy of the families for family reunion, she decides to take the DNA test, right? And sends in her sample and gets her results back in. We learn my mom is not who, her background in makeup is not what we thought it was. We thought she was just this aberration in her family unit, right? And it turns out that my mother is 70% European. The way we translate that is my mother is white. And so 4 years ago when we get this news, she's processing it and she's the second oldest child. We don't know the circumstances of her birth. The man who I grew up knowing was my grandfather, and my grandmother, neither one were living at the time we learned this. So here's why I'm sharing this with you. Because after 2 years of being angry, not because of the particulars, what we discovered, but angry that my story, who I thought I was and where I came from, was not exactly as we were told, thinking that the way she looked was because of Native American heritage and all these other narratives, when in fact that was not the case. And so I grappled with it and wrestled with it. Now, here's where I'm going to be very transparent with you. At the same time that I am learning this, I also get tapped to be the chief diversity officer of the organization that I work for, the company that I work for. So at the same time that I am responsible for bringing leadership to a predominantly white institution, chairing a diversity, equity, inclusion committee where at one point I was the only person of color, and at the same time trying to process this news about my mother and the implications for me. I'm grateful for that time because what it did was expanded my capacity to love. It helped me to get to the point where I could see, regardless of what the DNA results said about my mother, she was still my mother and the same amazing, beautiful soul that taught me to love. Regardless of the circumstances of her conception and birth, my grandmother was still the amazing, beautiful soul that I always knew her to be. See, when we come to the place in our lives where we might get some hard truths and some inconvenient truths, then that's where we have to grapple with it and do some self-reflection and say, wait, I consider myself to be a person of love. And these feelings that I'm having are complex and nuanced. And I don't want to end in a place that doesn't align with who I believe myself to be love. I believe myself to be one who spreads love and who speaks love and who is love and walks in love. And so if that's who I believe myself to be, I need to work with and travel through this emotional landscape so that I can end up in a place that aligns with what I believe about me. The other thing it showed me was, and this is relevant, so stay with me. The other thing it showed me was that when I was sitting in those committee meetings and listening to the voices of people around that table who did not look like me and who were not doing the research that I thought they should be doing, what I realized was that I was judging them as much as I was advocating for them not to judge me or judge others that look like me. So then I had to come to terms with my own incongruence about other people. And that wrestling, that grappling expanded my understanding of the bias that I was susceptible to, the judgments that I was prone to make about people, and brought me to a place of humility so that, watch this, so that I could lead without judging, that I could lift and elevate without diminishing folk, that I could be a true voice of light, and that when I spoke to the issues, good, bad, and ugly, that people first would feel love before they felt anything else. They would feel my heart for them as humans. That's what this journey has been about for me. And so now I'm in a place when I think about what is my responsibility? What is our individual responsibility? And I'll just kind of wrap it up with this because I feel like I've been going on for a while. But let me say this. It is not for us to carry the burden of trying to change other people. That is not our responsibility. That is not our burden. But as leaders, as global change agents, as those who spread light and love in the earth, it is important for us to make peace or get aligned with what makes sense for us on these issues so that we can be congruent with our confessions and professions of love. But it is also for us to be an example, to be exemplars of people who can make authentic connections with those who do not look like themselves, with those who do not look like them, and build authentic connections. Because I'm not going to share my truths, my intimate truths with you unless I can trust you. And I won't be able to trust you until you prove yourself to be a safe person for me. And that is the essence of what has happened between me and Sahar. She was safe for me. She was safe and I was safe for her. So I'll close with this. The first time I went to visit her in California, when she went, right after she started, after we first met and before she had her first Bright Side of Life gathering in her home, I remember we were in her bedroom. I was laying on the floor. She was laying on the bed, and I had my feet propped up on the bed, and we were talking. And at one moment, we both felt something, and we looked at each other and we said, "Oh my gosh." This is what Sahar said to me. She said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "I can't ever remember feeling this safe with someone, that I could be this transparent." She said, "I don't feel any dark energy." And I was laying on the floor. I put my hand over my heart and I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever had this experience either." And in that moment, we made a commitment to always be that for one another, to always be that, to always be that, and to always assume that she had my highest good and I had her highest good at the forefront of our minds. That's the way we have lived. And if we sense in the spirit that something might be off, we are proactive with one another to say, "Hey, just in case, I just want to make sure you know A, B, C, and D, this, that, and the other. Don't want anything to get confused." And then we're able to say to one another, "I never thought that. I'm good. We're good." That's love. I don't even have words for who she is to me, but I know I cherish her, and I cherish the candor that we can share with one another. Because between me, you, and the lamppost, I think I'm Palestinian. I'm just saying. I think I'm Palestinian. When I go visit her, that's all she cooks for me. She don't cook hamburgers for me. I get to eat the food of her people, and I think I'm Palestinian. Like I could be Palestinian in another life.
That's our new theory, by the way.
That's right. That's our thing. That's right. That's our thing.
And it's the only way we're sisters. Like there's no way that she can.
Right.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you all for letting me share.
Anything that you voice, anything you speak, don't ever apologize for not the timing or wrapping it up, because we want to hear from you. Do you understand? Like, put in the comments, like, "Go, Cheryl, we want to hear more," right? In the comments, give me thumbs up or say something to her, that everything that comes out of your beautiful voice is so magical, and I love it.
Thank you.
So we want to
Thank
go
you.
ahead, and I want to share something with you, what she said that was so important to me, and what something I have been actually teaching about community and who you surround yourself with, right? One of the reasons that I love having so much, or here's one thing that I know for sure. One of the most common questions or comments or feedback, rather, that people always ask is, how do you have such diverse community, right? How do you surround, every event that you do, there's always a multitude of diverse people, whether it's small or big, there's always at least 7 to 8 to 10 cultures, even in a smaller group. And that even followed me in Illinois, and they're constantly asking me, oh my gosh, we've never been in a space with so much diversity. And I've always was always like, yeah, I don't want to say dismiss, but I say, yeah, that's just the way it is. Like throughout my life, having diversity in my life is part of me and part of who I am as a leader, part of who I am as an individual. I want to say thanks to my mother. Just as Cheryl has shared her background, my mother is a Palestinian activist who spoke on behalf of the Palestinian people. So imagine me growing up with that force of power. She's spoken on stages all over the Arab world with presidents and kings. And so I grew up with this woman who had she feared nothing. She spoke out exactly how she should, despite of who she is and her background, her religion, her belief. She spoke out on stages maybe other people wouldn't speak out. She's not only was she not only ahead of her game as a Palestinian Christian woman, but she is ahead of her game as a woman in general. So she gave me the permission to speak out. But mostly what I want to tell you about my mom, the most loving individual I've ever met in my life. She loved everyone. One example, she loved the Quran. Again, even though the background is Christianity, she was more spiritual like I am, but she loved the Quran so much. And when the African-American Muslim community in Oakland asked her to teach the Quran, she even went further to study it more so she could teach it. That's the kind of mother I have. She just loved humanity. We never felt in any way anybody's different. In our home, you'll see the Quran and you'll see the Bible. And you'll also see Rumi and Hafiz. And you'll also see all the philosophers in the world. We grew up on that. And it's such a blessing for me to have that. And so I grew up in this environment. And so it is part of who I am. And I've always been puzzled, like, you have so much diverse people. Isn't that how it's supposed to be? But later I've learned, with all these issues that are happening of unjust, I've learned that this is not how people live. And I want to always to speak out. And so I became even more mindful. I became even more mindful to make sure that this diversity in my space always stays and to always speak of it. To first speak about my culture and my heritage, my background, and how proud I am of it. And I invite each and every one of you to do that. Be proud of your heritage. I don't care what it is and where you come from. Speak about it. Share it with others. Invite them over to eat your food.
Yes.
Meet your family.
Yes.
The kids intermingle. Have them meet.
Yes.
This is where it starts in leadership, ladies.
Yes.
Expand your horizon. If there is an event that you're invited to and it makes you feel uncomfortable, go. I went to so many events for the African-American community, and probably was the only Palestinian there, the only white person there, but I loved being there because this is what I thrive on. I wanted to learn more, and it was safe for me because it is okay for me to be in a place where I'm curious. Get out of your comfort zone. Invite other cultures into your space.
Yes.
Be mindful. And one of the exercises I want to give you, and this is something, by the way, Cheryl and I, we're speaking of, I mean, we got so caught up in this conversation. Her and I are going to be doing a retreat, online retreat. It's going to be an all day, probably 2 or 3 days. And we'll be sending you more information about it because this is the stuff we want to bring forth to you. Everything that who we are. And we'll reach out to you and see if those of you who are curious would like to learn more. But what I want to tell you right now, I want you to take inventory of who you hang out with. Get a piece of paper and write down all the 20 people that you hang out with, whether it is your family members, your friends, your colleagues, your clients. I want you to make a list, 20 to 50. Split the paper in half, right? Put a line. You put their first, last name, and on the right side, I want you to put who are they to you and how can you learn more about them? And I want you to really be honest with yourself. What is the most backgrounds of these people are that you're hanging out with? And if you see the same culture or background, I invite you to expand, get another piece of paper and just say, these are the people that I'm curious about and I want to learn about. It has to be genuine though. Don't do it because I told you to do it. It's because you want to be curious and you really want to do it intentionally. And that's what I do. I become very intentional to go to spaces so I could invite people into my space. And I want you to do the same. Go out and be curious to learn more about various people. And that's what Cheryl was talking about, the love, humanity. That's who we are. Love them as a human being, but so often we need to learn about who they are. We all judge. We all judge. At first glance, we identify people by certain things, what society have told us to believe or not to believe. But what I invite you to do, even if you judge, go ahead and invite. Many years back, after 9/11, I actually invited an Israeli sister to come with me on stage. And we all spoke as a Palestinian Israeli because I wanted to be curious and I wanted to share with the world that I don't fear being with Israelis. I want to love them as humans. If they are lovable to be and be open to love me as a human being. And her and I, Sfia, we spoke on many, many stages. And the number one thing that I've received from this experience is in the audience, Arabs would come up to me if there are any, and they say, we so appreciate your courage to be on stage with an Israeli as a Palestinian. And are you not fearful of what the way you're sharing? And I go, I can't fear because if I'm not going to educate and share my truth with people, I might as well not be a human. And then the Israelis would come up to me, and that was the most touching thing. And they would give me a hug, and a lot of them would say to me this, and that what blew my mind. They said, we have never been so close to a Palestinian or even been in the same room with one. And I just want to introduce myself. And is it okay if I give you a hug?
Yes.
And that's what change is.
Yes.
And I would embrace them and love them because they came up to me with courage. And ladies, most of my top friends are Jewish. No being apologetic. And not because they are Jewish. I love them first for who they are. The next step was for me to be their dear friends. It doesn't matter what backgrounds and what culture and who you are. Cheryl's message about love as a human being, that is the first thing that you need to do, is to say, how can I love this person for who they are as a human being? And I want to end there because there is another question for Cheryl. Oof, that's beautiful. Please share your comments. I'm going to go ahead and read some before we ask the next question. Is absolutely beautiful. Acceptance. Thank you, Cheryl. Your voice required to be part of the agreements. Thank you. Your voice, again, beautiful. Thank you, Cheryl. Very powerful. Of course, she's very powerful, authentic and enlightening. Cheryl, you have much loving power in the world. Woo! Excellent, Cheryl. I love listening to you, hear you, Cheryl. Of course. All right, beautiful. Gem, Cheryl. So thank you for your beautiful messages about Cheryl. It's important for her to hear this. And so the next step and next question that I have for you, and we're doing great. I'm going to put you on the spotlight, my friend. And this is really, it's for us to take action, right? Your topic is about who are sincere about understanding the issues and responsibilities that are related to creating an inclusive culture, of course, and contribute to a well-being of every individual. Your topic on the majesty of humanity, which I so love. And maybe another time we'll talk to him about the fun time we've had with that on New Year's Eve last year.
Sure, yeah.
But where do people start? Where do people start?
Yeah, I think in terms of beginning to see humans as humans,
yes,
okay.
or at this moment, because it is about the Black people right now. Where do you feel
Right.
people
Right.
just who are curious? Okay, Cheryl, you're African American, you're Black, and
Yeah.
where do I start if I want to reach out? So that would be the question.
Right. So I think the first thing that people need to do is research the issues. And I put together a quick hit list of things to keep in mind that you want to be intentional about, and then things you want to be intentional not to do.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Just out of respect. But I think the first thing you need to do is, or the first thing I'd recommend that you consider is researching the issues of inequity, social justice, systemic racism, institutional racism. What I have found is that there are people who have opinions, but they're not informed. And if you're going to talk to someone who has, who as a people group, and in this case, we're talking about Black people, when you're going to talk to individuals who are part of a people group whose lived experience is pure oppression, whether you agree with it or not, but you know that's the headline, then a heart of love would compel us to do research and get informed so that we can at least approach the conversation with some respect and with genuine curiosity. Because when somebody comes to me and they really just want me to hear their opinion, not that, hey, listen, this is the extent of what I understand. Could you help me unpack this some more? Because I genuinely want to learn. I genuinely want to be informed and figure, and better understand where I'm missing it. Watch this, because we all have blind spots, right? So that's what's number one. If you're driven by love, then get informed. And you can do best books. You can Google it. Best books, best resources to understand issues of systemic racism, et cetera. So you don't need Black people to give you a book list like a library. You don't need that. Don't ask for that. That wouldn't be cool. So that would be the place to start. The second thing would be that if you have someone in your circle of love or in your circle of friendship, if you have a Black person in your circle, and I'm not talking, it doesn't matter what part of your circle, but do you have someone that you feel like you have enough of a connection with where you could go to them in earnest and say, I want to do better. I want to become better. Could I reach out to you from time to time? Would you be open? I have a handful of friends who do that. My white colleagues who are presidents of organizations here or CEOs, et cetera. And this is part of how I make a contribution. I know that my white counterparts need a safe person because I've already done the work grappling with these painful things over the last few years. I'm in a place to do that. So you have to know where you are. It's not your responsibility, but if you're in that place where you're able to, then that's a way that you can contribute. Now, I don't respond to hearts that are not earnest and pure, because that's an insult. And I had that experience over the weekend.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I have. I mean, I can certainly give Sahar, I can certainly send the list to you so that you could send it out to your community, so that they could see the details of it. But I will, let me just share this one thing with you. One thing that you could do is, I see people when these discussions are being had, I see people who are not Black getting offended by the shared truths, those by Black people who are sharing their truths. I see people get offended. That part says to me that if when I share my truth and my experience, I'm not talking about pointing a finger at anybody, but when I say, this is what it's been like for me, and if that offends you, then that's a red flag for you. That becomes a red flag for you, or a signal to you that there is something that you believe that makes what I'm saying threatening, etc. Not that what I'm saying is intentionally harmful. So for example, on some level, if you believe yourself to be a good person, and if my lived experience is one of pain and suffering and for my loved ones, and you take my lived experience and translate that into, well, I'm not such and such, I'm not such and such, then you're making that moment of understanding about you when it is about being present with this other human being who is telling you their truth. There was a lot to that. I feel like I could workshop that all by itself, but hear my heart.
Thank you. Wow, that's wonderful. So I want to, you may have answered it, but I'm sorry, but I may have not been paying attention, but how about for my Black sisters, the African-American women? You and I had talked about it. What is their responsibility, if any? Let's go ahead and touch on that.
Yeah, I would say that her first responsibility is to herself and self-care. That's her first responsibility. To herself and practicing extreme self-care for herself. And I mean spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, all of that, right? To know when she's had enough and to be able to pull back and know when she has the capacity to engage again in whatever's happening, right? That's number one. I think the second thing is for her to find her voice and here in these matters. And here's what I mean by that. Because years ago, I was not in a place that I could speak to racism. It was so atrocious to me. I didn't even want to be in the same room where people were talking about it. It shredded my soul. So I didn't have a voice. I couldn't speak. So if the topic came up, I wasn't able to contribute to advance understanding. I would shrink back or try to disappear. Over the years, because of things that I've shared with you all and many other things, I've had to find my voice. What do I really think and feel about these things? But that took me becoming more informed as well. Because just because we're Black doesn't mean that we know all the history and all the science and all the behavioral stuff. Like, doesn't mean that you know it all. It just means this is the container God created for you, right? So I would say, find your voice. What do you think about the issues? Find where you're situated on the continuum, and then when and if necessary, give voice to them if you deem it appropriate. And the moment, since we've been conditioned because of the angry Black woman stereotype, that I would say, the third thing I would say is dispense with that. If you can come to a place where you realize, sis, it is not about that anymore, because number one, we have a right to be angry about injustice. We have a right to be angry about evils that are perpetrated against anyone. And I'll close with this, that this past weekend, I was a guest at a barbershop series talk. I was invited as a guest speaker. It's being recorded. They're going to create this series that will be made available nationally, and when they complete it. And at one point when I was answering a question, I was very energetic and very intense. I was very aware of my energy. And I said, given all the faces in the room, I said, don't confuse this. Don't misconstrue this as me being angry, although I have a right to be angry. What you see is my passion for the majesty of humanity and the rights of all people to realize their potential. And so don't get this confused and try to put me in a box, because that's not what this is. And so I had a young white guy come to me later and hug me and say, thank you for labeling your passion. He said, because I'm aware of the stereotype. And thank you for calling that out so people wouldn't be confused, you know, because you never know who's going to view it. So that it's where we are in this thing is different for all of us. I just encourage you to have clarity about where you are, be able to give voice to it. And aside from anything else, take care of yourself.
Oh,
take care of yourself.
Amen. That's one of the things that you and I will be doing is about self-care, daily rituals, because without them, and we both witnessed each other going through times where we didn't take care of ourselves. But I love, love, love that message. That's perfect. And it applies for everybody. It applies for everybody, the self-care aspect of it anyway. So thank you so much. I know we have 5 more minutes. We want to know if any of you have any questions for Cheryl. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this. Anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. If you have any curiosity, anything that you want to ask. Anybody has any questions? Okay, I see Debbie. Go ahead and unmute. Go ahead, Debbie. What is your question, sweetheart? Make it as short as possible. That way we could have the time for
I love what you're saying and what you're sharing. So thank you so much. And very quickly, we are all very compassionate people, it seems like, who are on this webinar. How do we, for me, the difficulty is helping to influence or change the hearts and minds of people who aren't as accepting, who aren't on that path of willing to do the right thing.
That's a beautiful question. I just want to say one thing, and then I'm going to give the stage to you. Cheryl, just want to say that, first of all, we talked about judgment. We can't judge them, number one. Number two, each and every one of us have chosen to be on earth to do something specific, and we can't judge that either. We all are in our own process, right? If you are called to reach out energetically and share something, you could do that. But before you do that, my answer to you is not to judge the space they're at, because they're still learning how to become a better human being. And so I'm going to go ahead and see what my friend Cheryl has to add about that. So the stage
Certainly. Thank you for that wonderful question. That's prime. So this is what I would say. That because we all have a certain amount of energy and capacity, that to invest our energy in places where people are not receptive is to how do I want to say it, is to allow our treasures to be dissipated with no return on investment. It is not our job to try to get people to feel what they don't feel. This is the stuff that I learned in my study of adult development and the theory of change and all of that. When I finally wrapped my arms around that, I realized, gosh, it's not my job to try to get them to be someone other than who they are or to feel something other than they feel. My job, there's a scripture we always refer to that says, strengthen what remains. So in other words, I'm going to invest my energies in lifting up those individuals who have a genuine interest, who have a genuine passion to see change, because one could put 1,000 to flight, two could put 10,000 to flight together. So we work on strengthening those spaces that are going to contribute to good. The rest of them will come around in their own time. If they don't, that's not on us.
Absolutely. It is not our responsibility to try to convince people to think better. They have to be ready.
Right.
They have to be ready.
Now, that doesn't mean we don't share the messages like are being shared, but it means that we don't hang on so tightly to an individual outcome that it drains us. That's not for us.
I love that. Thank you, Cheryl.
I like the idea of spreading the message still, because it's not about judgment, it's about change, and it's about not having a blind eye, because that's where the police force is not doing an adequate job and causing and adding to the problem. So I guess I'm thinking of it as not as energetically, but I understand and agree with both of you. It's how can we try to get people to understand that at least reforms have to happen so that.
Oops, sorry, I
Yeah.
muted you accidentally.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And you have to, people have to be, that's why we have to run for office. That's why we have to sit on boards. That's why we have to advocate. So the work of advocating is always necessary. That's our responsibility, to put the truth out there. But what happens in an individual heart is a burden that we cannot carry.
Agree.
So.
Thank you.
Very
That's
good.
a
Thank
great
you.
question. We might have one more. I know we're almost done, but I want to make sure if anybody else has any questions for Cheryl to raise their hand. If not, we could just wrap it up. All right. Beautiful. Wow. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Cheryl, I want to just extend my heart and love to you always, 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 especially for just always showing up who you are. And also to answer your question, Debbie, is just be the example, really. Just be the example and do what
Oh yeah,
you know is
I
right.
was raised that way, and I continue. My grandmother was.
Yep. So what I want to say in closing is I just want to, I'm sorry about that, but I just want to go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to say in closing that each and every one of us has a responsibility as a human being, just like as Cheryl said, to really step it up and become the best version of ourselves. I know you hear this over and over and over, but this couldn't be a more perfect divine timing for each and every one of us to be the best version of who we are in every area. Yes. I shared with you to take inventory of who you hang out with. I want you to take an inventory of every feeling, thought, emotion, and word that comes out of your mouth, ladies. And I want you to do a checklist. And I've been doing that every single day. When a feeling of prejudice comes up because I'm a human, when a feeling of judgment comes up because I'm a human, I check in, just like Cheryl said. Just check in with yourself. Take an inventory of the way you think, the way you're speaking, the words that come out of your mouth.
Yes.
And become the best version of who you are. We could never be a perfect person, but an example for generations to come. And I want to end on that. Anything else you want to share, Cheryl?
No, I love you all to life, and we're in this journey together. The world can't help but become better because we're here.
Yes, amen to that. I thank each and every one of you for joining us. Until we meet again, I love you all. An email will be sent out for those of you who are curious, want to know the work that Cheryl and I are birthing in this world. Yeah. We will, please let us know. Much love to all. Yes. Again, thank you, Cheryl, for your time and love and energy. Thanks each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.